All right, back-to-back videos about the Dallas Mavericks. We talked about in the last video with Daniel Gafford how there's some more moving pieces going on behind the scenes. It looks like they were trying to acquire some other second-round picks to kind of finalize that trade. I'm guessing this is what ended up materializing out of this. Maybe this is a combination of the trade with the Thunder and Gordon Hayward. Somehow, maybe these are all connected and it's kind of like a four-way trade somehow. Maybe they're all separate. I don't know. But in essence, PJ Washington is on his way out of Charlotte. Charlotte continues to blow this team up. They're taking back Grant Williams, Seth Curry. They're getting a first-round pick in 2027. So good for Charlotte there. It's only top two protected, so it's lightly protected. If Dallas completely bottoms out, they keep the pick then. That's awesome. And then it looks like Charlotte is also sending out over 2 second-round picks. Wherever they fall, we don't really know. So Dallas continues to fortify their front court, picking up a guy that's most likely going to be their starting power forward in PJ Washington. PJ Washington's been a real consistent player throughout his NBA career so far. Hasn't really jumped into anything all that crazy, but he's had like good quality seasons given it's been on the Charlotte Hornets. But that also leads me to believe that on a good franchise where like there's established roles, there's strong leadership, like good coaching, things like that, we might see even more out of PJ Washington than what we already get. So right now you're getting about a 14-point-a-game score. He's historically a pretty good three-point shooter. He hasn't been great this year, but they've had so much inconsistency with guard play. Their offense in Charlotte looks so horrible right now anyway. I'm willing to bet that when he's just like, okay, now I'm in Dallas, so now my job is to wait right here, catch and shoot from Luka and Kyrie, things are going to go a lot better. So them losing Grant Williams, the reason they got Grant Williams was to be that stretch four kind of guy that could also go out and defend. PJ Washington's not as good of like an on-ball defender is Grant Williams. I wouldn't put them in the same category at all. But I think you're going to get a more consistent offensive player out of PJ Washington, and he can still play enough defense. Another thing that's interesting about PJ is that his contract actually declines in salary over the next couple of years. I want to say he makes like 14 or 15 million right now, and it continues to drop over the next like 2-3 seasons. So you're getting him for a while, which is nice. Like you still have 3 years of his contract left. That's awesome. Grant Williams, the experiment just didn't really work out for him, right? So Charlotte, as they've made very clear, they're like, we don't want anybody on this team anymore. We'll take on some contracts that you don't want. That's Grant Williams in this case. That's Seth Curry. We'll talk about that too. But give us a draft pick. So they got their draft pick for PJ Washington. That's something to help them in the future. Maybe Grant Williams gets moved again. Maybe he's just a guy on their team that they try to trade in the offseason or something. Maybe he looks good playing for Charlotte the rest of the year. Who knows, right? But they give up on PJ Washington, a guy that they're not looking to keep anyway. Dallas has a much better use for him. So Grant Williams he just started this new contract and it's going up. So that's going to be something for Charlotte to deal with. They don't really care, right? They're using that method that we saw like the Brooklyn Nets use and the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they're taking on these big contracts in exchange for getting draft picks because they know they're not going to be good anyway. I think that's a great way to do things. Grant Williams, essentially, you've gotten the same production that you got out of him in Boston, yet it's been less efficient, which is pretty disappointing considering he was slated to have a much bigger role this year in Dallas. And, you know, it takes time for guys to figure this stuff out and everything. He's still a relatively young player. You expect somewhat consistency, especially out of a team that plays a pretty consistent style out of the time, or a lot of the time. So that's pretty disappointing. But you know what? Now he's out of Dallas's hair or whatever. Now you've got PJ Washington, who again, pretty model of consistency basketball player. I like the idea of being able to have a bigger stretch big like that too, a guy that can still get above the rim and contest and be a little athletic as well. So I think this fits a need that Dallas was really trying to find. We had seen that they were going after guys like the Kyle Kuzma, the Bogdanoviches and stuff, obviously not on the same level of those guys, but you didn't have to give up nearly as much to get him then. I think the first round pick is probably something you did have to give up to get him, and I think that's probably fine. The other guy they're losing is Seth Curry, who really hasn't done a ton for them this year. I'm willing to bet that he becomes one of the first obvious guys in the buyout market outside of like a Kyle Lowry. So that's kind of what I'm thinking's going to happen there. Who knows where Seth Curry ends up or anything, but I just can't imagine he wants to play in Charlotte. Although that is kind of cool that there's now a Curry in Charlotte again, shout out Del Curry and everything. So maybe he does that for a game or two just because that's cool. But I would imagine he gets bought out at some point. So you giving up a guy that wasn't in your rotation, a guy that wasn't succeeding in your rotation for probably a new starter, right? You had to give up a first round pick to get him, but you also use this trade to help facilitate the Daniel Gafford trade, which is a phenomenal trade. If you're giving up like 2 second-round picks and Rashawn Holmes for Daniel Gafford, that's awesome. If you're a Dallas fan, I'd feel pretty good about this. I still think you need some perimeter defenders and everything. This still isn't a perfect basketball team, but I think it's an improving basketball team. I think there's the capability for a higher level of defense now, and you've got a lot of guys that are locked up in pretty team-friendly and tradable contracts going forward, and they're relatively desirable players too, so this still allows for flexibility going forward. But I think this is a great move. I'm excited for Dallas and everything. This trade deadline's just been buzzing, man. This is awesome. It's like you've heard me say in my other videos, it's like a holiday for me. I love it. So I'm excited to see what other moves take place and everything. Obviously, I'll update you guys if any other like little actions take place in this or whatever. I'm trying to keep it updated. This is like my 5th or 6th video of the day, and I've got another one already scheduled to make after this, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last one. No huge names moved yet, but some decent names moved. Like a lot of teams probably also scared of that new cap threshold too, is holding teams back from making like real big trades until they kind of figure out what they're doing salary cap wise. But a lot of little moves being made that are going to make a difference. So y'all leave me a comment, subscribe, things like that. I love replying in the comments and everything. But yeah, we'll talk to y'all later.